Look at it. The Twilight Zone it's a place of imagination, a land of shadow. To reach it, you write a dream. To enter it, you need only your imagination.
Rod Serling didn't just create a television show. He created a mirror. A place where fear, prejudice, war, and human darkness could hide behind aliens, monsters, and impossible worlds. For millions of viewers, The Twilight Zone became the ultimate gateway into mystery and suspense. But among all its legendary episodes, one story crossed a line so controversial that it vanished from television for more than 50 years. This wasn't an episode about invading aliens or terrifying creatures. It was something much more dangerous because it felt real. The backlash was so intense that the network quietly buried it, removing it from reruns and syndication as if it had never existed at all. And for decades, people wondered the same question. What exactly happened inside those 30 minutes that made television executives lock it away forever? Before we get into that lost episode, you first have to understand the man behind the madness. Born in 1924 in Syracuse, Rod Serling grew up in a quiet American household before World War II changed everything. He enlisted in the Army and served as a paratrooper in the Pacific. The horrors he witnessed during the war left permanent scars on him emotionally and psychologically. When he returned home, tragedy struck again after the sudden death of his father. Those experiences shaped the dark, emotional themes that would later define his writing. Fear, guilt, death, isolation, and human cruelty became recurring ideas throughout his career. But Serling's biggest battle wasn't with war memories. It was with censorship. During the 1950s, television sponsors controlled nearly everything. Writers couldn't criticize corporations, discuss racism openly, or challenge political issues without networks interfering. Serling repeatedly watched his serious dramas get rewritten until their original messages disappeared completely. That frustration changed television history forever. Serling realized he could sneak controversial ideas past network executives if he disguised them as science fiction and fantasy. Instead of directly talking about racism or war, he could tell stories about aliens, time travel, or supernatural events while secretly criticizing real society underneath. That idea became The Twilight Zone. Premiering in 1959, the series quickly became unlike anything television audiences had ever seen. Every episode was a standalone story filled with eerie twists, psychological horror, and moral lessons. Viewers never knew if they were about to enter a haunted house, a dystopian future, or a nightmare hidden inside an ordinary suburban street. And standing at the center of it all was Rod Serling himself. His calm narration, dark suits, and unforgettable introductions turned him into one of the most iconic figures in television history. Ironically, Serling wasn't even supposed to be the narrator. Producers originally wanted a professional voice actor, but nothing felt right. Eventually Serling stepped in himself, and the result became legendary. Over 5 seasons, the show launched the careers of future stars like William Shatner, Robert Redford, Leonard Nimoy, and Ron Howard. But behind the scenes, the series constantly fought for survival. Despite critical acclaim, CBS canceled the show more than once because executives struggled to find sponsors willing to support such strange and controversial storytelling. At one point, the network forced the series into an hour-long format, stretching its tight psychological stories far beyond what Serling wanted. The pressure exhausted him. Still, he kept writing. Nearly 100 episodes carried his name, many inspired by real-world horrors that television normally avoided. One of the darkest inspirations came from the murder of Emmett Till, the 14-year-old black teenager brutally killed in Mississippi in 1955. Serling desperately wanted to write directly about racial violence, but network censorship repeatedly stopped him. So he hid those themes inside fantasy. That became the secret power of The Twilight Zone. Underneath the monsters and strange dimensions were stories exposing humanity's deepest flaws. But eventually, one episode pushed audiences too far. The episode was called The Encounter. Starring George Takei years before Star Trek made him famous, the story centered on 2 men trapped inside an attic. One was a World War II veteran named Fenton. The other was Arthur Takamori, a young Japanese-American man looking for work. At first, the conversation seems harmless. But everything changes when Fenton reveals a samurai sword he took from a dead Japanese soldier during the war. As tensions rise, the sword appears almost cursed, forcing both men to confront buried hatred, guilt, and wartime trauma. What follows becomes increasingly disturbing. The episode explores racism, paranoia, wartime violence, and the psychological scars left behind by World War II. But the controversy exploded because of one particular implication. The script suggested Arthur's father may have been involved in helping Japan during the attack on Pearl Harbor. For Japanese American audiences, this crossed a major line. Many families had already suffered through internment camps, discrimination, and suspicion during the war. To imply disloyalty among Japanese Americans felt deeply offensive and historically damaging. The backlash came fast. Following its original 1964 airing, CBS quietly removed the episode from syndication. While other classic episodes replayed endlessly for generations, the encounter disappeared almost entirely from television. Even George Takei later joked that it was the only episode that never earned him rerun residuals. For more than 5 decades, the episode remained hidden. It finally resurfaced in 2016 during a special marathon, instantly reigniting debates about censorship, racism, and whether controversial art should be buried or preserved. Today, many viewers see the episode as flawed but historically important. Others still consider it offensive and insensitive. Either way, it remains one of the most infamous chapters in television history. And strangely enough, that controversy perfectly reflects what the Twilight Zone was always about. Fear. Fear of outsiders. Fear of war. Fear of each other. That fear appeared again and again throughout the series in episodes like The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, where ordinary neighbors turn against one another out of pure paranoia. But while the stories terrified audiences, creating them was often just as chaotic behind the scenes. Take the classic episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Featuring a terrified William Shatner spotting a creature on an airplane wing, the episode became one of the most iconic moments in television history. But director Richard Donner later described filming it as a complete nightmare. Massive wind machines, fake rain, smoke effects, and complicated wire work pushed the production team to the limit. The noise on set became so loud that actors could barely hear instructions. Yet somehow, all that chaos created television magic. That same determination helped the series survive constant budget problems too. By season 5, producers were running out of money so badly that they purchased a French short film called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge instead of producing a completely new episode. The gamble worked brilliantly. The haunting story blended perfectly with the show's eerie atmosphere while saving thousands of dollars in production costs. Even the legendary theme music happened almost by accident. The famous opening notes weren't originally intended for the show at all. CBS music executives found pieces composed by Romanian musician Marius Constant and stitched them together cheaply to avoid higher production expenses. The result became one of the most recognizable themes in entertainment history. But despite all its success, Rod Serling himself never escaped the emotional weight he carried. Years of stress, endless writing schedules, and lingering wartime trauma eventually caught up with him. In 1975, Serling suffered a series of heart attacks and passed away at only 50 years old. Yet his influence never disappeared. Decades later, The Twilight Zone still feels timeless because its greatest monsters were never aliens or ghosts. They were human beings. And maybe that's why the encounter became so controversial. It forced viewers to confront wounds America still didn't want to discuss openly. War. Racism. Distrust. National shame. Those subjects felt far more frightening than anything supernatural. Even today, television continues wrestling with the same questions. When does storytelling become too offensive? Should controversial episodes be hidden forever? Or preserved as reflections of their time? The Twilight Zone never gave easy answers. It simply opened the door and invited us inside. And sometimes, what we found there was more terrifying than fiction itself. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Prestige Buzz, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss another story from Prestige Buzz. And tell us in the comments, what's your favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time?